got one more story, and that is the BBC is in ultimate FAFO zone right now. This is absolutely hilarious. We covered this story last week. The BBC completely not misedited, they deceptively and fraudulently edited two Trump speeches, spliced them together, and created something that Trump never said, and it was utterly reprehensible. It was utter disinformation. It was a complete and total fabricated lie. Well, they came out and apologized last week, and we didn't hear much from Trump other than he wasn't real impressed. But let's dive in, because this BBC story has just gotten bigger. We've got people in England now attacking the BBC, and we've got them openly rooting for Trump. This is great stuff. Check this out. As we do this, please smash that like button for me, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Please share Courageous Media with everybody that you go. We're going to dive in with Sky News first as they cover this story. Here we go.
Is gearing up for a massive legal battle with the BBC, seeking billions in damages after the broadcaster admitted to mishandling. It's an understatement. A clip of one of his speeches, something that has already claimed the job of two senior executives. Here is Donald Trump talking about the ordeal.
I'm not looking to get into lawsuits, but I think I have an obligation to do it. This was so egregious. If you don't do it, you don't stop it from happening again with other people. I think you probably have an obligation.
Joining me now from the UK is Talk TV host Mark Dolan.
Up with Mark Dolan here, and we're going to stop it there. We're going to pick back up with Mark Dolan in a minute, but I thought that was extremely interesting from Trump. I may have an obligation to do this because, we got to basically smack these people down. We can't have this going on. We can't have people splicing together clips and creating something that somebody never said. I mean, it's as bad as this whole idea of an AI deepfake. They just did it with, deceptive editing. And, it's one thing if you edit for time and you just kind of crunch some stuff together. No, but when you edit somebody's words to make them say something they never actually said, in fact, to make them say something that is 180-degree, the polar opposite of what they actually said, that is fraud. That is lying. That is deception. And so Trump is having none of this. Their little half-witted apology, he's not buying it. Check this out from Trump himself.
So the BBC has apologised and retracted the report, but they say they won't pay any compensation.
Well, we'll sue them. We'll sue them for anywhere between $1 billion and $5 billion, probably sometime next week.
So you're ready to take?
Well, I think I have to do it. I mean, they've even admitted that they cheated. Not that they couldn't have not done that. They cheated. They changed the words coming out of my mouth. That's worse than what CBS did with Kamala. They changed her answer, but at least they didn't show it, coming out of her mouth.
So the BBC has apologized.
So we got Trump saying we're going to sue him next week for between $1 billion and $5 billion. This is absolutely awesome. Go after the BBC for $5 billion. This is great stuff. Now let's dive back in to Sky News and their interview with former BBC executive. Check this out.
Mark, thanks for coming on the program. The BBC have hardly been repentant for misrepresenting Trump. It was a bit more than a mistake. Can you understand Trump's desire to sue?
Most definitely. I mean, what's great about this story, James, is that the leftist groupthink that dominates the BBC has been outed, and it's being exposed by the most famous man in the world, the most powerful man in the world, Donald Trump. And in Britain, we are celebrating the fact that at last we have an accountability for an organization that we're obliged to pay a compulsory tax for just to own a TV. And you don't mess with Trump. You do so at your peril. He's very angry about this. It's become a diplomatic incident. And I think he's going to be successful in changing the culture of the BBC because it's just exposed public anger about this organization that for years has been gaslighting the public, whether it's COVID measures, whether it's net zero. Its examples of bias are now legion. And at last, we're having this conversation.
Well, he says that one of the reasons he wants to sue, and he's talking about up to $5 billion in damages, is he hardly needs the money, but he says he wants to stop this sort of thing being repeated. And I don't know, maybe it will work, because have a listen to this little clip from CNN recently.
And we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell.
Mark, have you heard CNN be so careful? But they seem petrified of any potential lawsuits coming their way. So maybe you're right. Maybe Trump could change some of the media culture.
Yes, and it's not about becoming pro-Trump, James. You know, Donald Trump is a flawed human being. He's a flawed politician. He's far from perfect. And in fact, with that doctored...
It is about changing the media landscape and about changing the media narrative and the media atmosphere, which Trump has already done. Realize that when Trump rolled out fake news 8 years ago, the change in media direction started right then and there. We now have the fact that only 20% of Americans even watch or trust mainstream propaganda media. That is down from like 80% just 20 years ago. So Trump has already changed the media landscape, but he's changing it again because he is now forcing the propaganda media companies to at least be somewhat even-handed, or at least be circumspect in how they say things. He won his lawsuit against ABC. He won his lawsuit against CBS. He will most likely win this lawsuit against the BBC. They will probably settle. They probably won't go to court. It probably won't be $5 billion, but whatever it is, it shows the American and the British public just how egregious the BBC is. And that gentleman is 100% right. The BBC has been wrong on everything. They've been intentionally wrong on COVID, on climate change, on all of this ridiculous nonsense. And now they've been caught actually fabricating news. This is great stuff. I hope Trump wins. I hope he wins big. I hope he forces them into a huge settlement and actual apologies and actual change in policy. But check this out, because you've got actual British citizens who are rooting for Trump against the BBC. Now, it might be because, realize this, I don't know if any of you knew this, but in Britain, when you buy a television, you have to pay a license fee to the BBC. Whether you watch the BBC or not, whether you want to receive the BBC or not, when you buy a TV, you have to pay them, I believe the amount is upwards of $100 to $200 a month. It's basically an entire cable bill just for the BBC that most British don't even want to watch because it's utter and complete trash. Now check this out, because they're actively rooting for Trump. This is great.
Well, there are lots of people in Britain who are cheering President Trump on and who want him to sue the BBC because they're a huge problem. They've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage, both in the case of President Trump, but also covering up what's happening in Britain, whether it's mass migration, whether it's our economic problems. They are always biased towards the left, and the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. So there is a lot of excitement amongst conservatives in Britain at the moment that President Trump is actually taking the BBC on.
Exactly. The BBC has gaslit the British public on all of the SA gangs. You know, the problem with the grooming gangs throughout England. They've gaslit them on, all sorts of liberal policies. They're the ones who basically they refused to cover. They essentially deplatformed Nigel Farage so badly that Nigel Farage was forced to go essentially start his own network, which he did, GB News. GB News is the brainchild of Nigel Farage. It's an independent news network that only exists because the BBC was so egregiously biased against him and against conservatives in Britain. It's absolutely amazing. And the British citizens are now rooting for Trump against their own dim-witted network. This is awesome.
Do you think an apology from the BBC is enough?
No, I don't, because they keep doing it again and again. They have painted a completely false picture of President Trump in Britain over a number of years. They've done the same thing about conservatives in our country. And I believe the organization needs to be defunded. And as well as suing the BBC, I think it would be fantastic if President Trump were to encourage stopping the British taxpayer funding What is fake news that is damaging Britain's reputation? I mean, the BBC used to be the paragon of journalism across the world. It was respected. It's now become a laughing stock, and it needs to be put out of its misery.
Exactly. It's become a laughing stock, just like CNN, BS Now, when they finally officially changed their name, but PMSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, they're all the same. They are all globalist propaganda news sources. It's not actual news, it's globalist propaganda. And they are beholden to the cabal, the same cabal that put Barry Soetoro in office as the president of the United States, aka Barack Hussein Obama. So this is the real issue. The real issue is it's not, America is not about black versus white or any of that nonsense anymore. It is about the working class versus the elitist establishment. It is about America first citizens versus the globalist buffoons, versus the cabal that wants to destroy America and all of Western civilization. They are succeeding in Europe. They are essentially mass importing all sorts of Muslims and others into Europe and destroying that culture as we watch. But right now, we have got a bulwark in Trump. Trump is deporting all these people. He has ended illegal immigration. Now, the next thing that needs to happen, and I'm fully on board with Charlie Kirk on this one, we need to end all legal migration until the migrants we have here legally have assimilated. We need to end the HB1 visa program. And it needs to be basically the only type of that program is only when American talent is not available. Right now it's being used to essentially drive prices down, to drive wages down, and to give jobs that should go to Americans to foreigners. And it's wrong. And we need to get back to where housing is affordable for younger Americans. We covered that story last week. Check out that video. It's fantastic. Charlie Kirk's last words, essentially, on X. But I really appreciate everybody rolling up. Remember, please smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notifications, share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. It really helps us out in the YouTube algorithm. If you watch the video all the way through, all of them that we post, comment for the algorithm, smash that like button, and share it. Thanks. It really helps out. Thank you so much. Remember that God is good and He is sovereign. He is in control of this whole thing. I want to see every last Epstein file come out. Let's let the chips fall where they may. And whoever's implicated, let them be held accountable. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, God is good and He is sovereign. Until I catch you next time, have a great day.